So I made directions for the drive thing, and there's directions on how to add drives in there. But I can go over it. I can go over it with you to maybe in about an hour. Otherwise tomorrow morning. Gotcha. Yeah, any new drives that get added, we have to add manually until I can figure out an automated process. So there's a document that talks about how to do it. You just have to go into SQL and add it to a table. That's it. It's not difficult. It's more of a matter of knowing how to do it. So I don't have a problem with that. I'll be happy to show you. Okay. Sounds good. I'll talk to you hopefully a little bit later, otherwise tomorrow morning. Yep. Bye.
Even though you're not coming from Azure background, we'll still be talking about a lot of DevOps basics concepts. You will learn a lot, not only just DevOps, but how to do this DevOps on cloud, which is Microsoft Azure Cloud. We'll talk about certification, which is a Azure DevOps certification, 3-star certification AZ400. We're going to do a demo as well and question answers. Now, quick housekeeping. You are all muted from your side, but you can ask questions via the chat window. So there should be chat window wherever you're watching this. Make sure you ask questions, a lot of questions, make this session interactive, and behind the scene, Nishant or my team will be answering all the questions. At each logical point, if we think questions are relevant or important, we'll cover that, but we'll take all the questions towards end and we'll try as many questions as possible. Our sessions get very, very busy and we get a lot of questions. So for some reason, if we can't finish all the questions in time, then we'll put it in email. Now, all the questions and their answers as well. Now, also, the session is being recorded, but the recording will be available only for those who stay till end and those who join live. You all have joined live, so brilliant. And you will be getting a recording if you stay till the end. Now, we always get excellent feedback in these sessions, and we usually get all 5-star ratings. And at some point in time, we will be asking how to rate this session so that we can do something to improve if there's a scope of improvement. So 5 being the highest, and less number is not that good, or you were happy but not that happy. So if you rate us anything below 5, I would love to take your feedback as well on what we can do to improve, because we don't want to waste your time. We want, even though it's a free training, we want to have the excellent value for time. Whatever you learn, when you finish this training today, free training, you should be able to learn a lot of things. So that's that's the objective from us in today's class. So this is what we are going to cover. We'll first look at why to learn DevOps and why I'm focusing on Azure Cloud. Then what is DevOps for someone who is beginner, who has no idea about DevOps, and who should learn it. If you already know DevOps, we'll keep it still cover just from a overview point of view, so for completeness point of view. Then we'll cover CI/CD, which is continuous integration. And another common question we get is, what is CD stands for? Is it delivery or deployment? So we'll cover both what is continuous integration and continuous delivery, continuous deployment. And Azure has some tools we call board, repo, which is like Git repository, pipeline to automate things, test plans for if you're coming from a testing and QA background. Artifacts is when you developers, when they develop the code, the builders will build it, and then they generate some code which can be deployed on the server, which is called as artifacts. And then testers will test plan it. We'll be also looking at infra and config management. So infrastructure, if you're coming from ops side, if you're coming from administrator side, how do you do the infra, which could be like your virtual machines, Azure Kubernetes service, web apps, and then config management tools like Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, and there's also in Azure, you have Azure Automation. Then we'll also look at DevOps for security, which is rugged security also called as, or DevSecOps. And then DevOps for testers or QA, as I said earlier. And then we are going to give a demo. And this is a live demo we are going to do where we are going to deploy an application like similar to way you do in production, but on a application or web apps, but without doing any downtime. We call blue green. What is that blue green? We'll discuss about that as well, and how to do that in a live demo. We're going to do something similar to what companies these days do in actual live implementation. Then we'll talk about Microsoft Azure DevOps certification, which is AZ 400, and the percentage-wise exam topic and the hands-on lab that you must do. And we recommend around 25 plus hands-on lab that you must do, not only to clear the certification, but also to get a better paid job in DevOps. We'll also look at some of the job opportunities and how you can get better paid, whatever you're doing, much, much higher than what you're doing in jobs related to cloud and DevOps in cloud. We'll also be doing the question answers and how you can take whatever you're learning to the next level. And then limited time gift, but that's for action takers, and like they'll be only for 15 minutes for fast action takers. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the end. And then also towards end, I'm going to talk about another hot topic, which is Docker and Kubernetes, or containers. You might have heard microservices, containers, or Dockers, and container orchestration like Kubernetes running on Azure. We have three services: Azure Container Registry, Azure Container Instance, Azure Kubernetes services. We'll talk about that as well, and something interesting bonus which we'll talk about this as well. So this is what we are going to learn. Now let's first begin with why learn Azure DevOps, or DevOps why, and then why on Azure. That's the first thing which people might have the questions. Now, before I go to DevOps, let's see evolution of development and deployment. Now, every IT company, they are developing applications, building them and running on somewhere, and a lot has changed since 1980s when it started. I started my career in 21 years back in year 2000, where much before me, the development process in 80s and 90s used to be waterfall, meaning you first collect requirement and you build for 2-3 years, and then suddenly then you test, realize, oh, it was not as per the requirement, or things have changed. So earlier it used to be waterfall model. Application infrastructure used to be monolithic, which means every big bulky applications, you might have heard of mainframes. So things like that, big bulky applications. My servers used to be physical servers where I have a machine. On top of that, I install operating system and run my servers. My servers application infrastructure used to be in my data center, we call on-premise or customer data center. Then came year 2000, or in that age, the things started agile, which means you were doing iterative development. You were developing a little bit functionality, testing it, developing, testing. My application architecture gone to N tier, which means I have a database tier, web tier, and apps tier. My servers gone from physical to virtual machines. I had virtual machines where one machine, on top of that, I can run multiple operating system or multiple machines. And my application infrastructure is now hosted in maybe and managed services at some other data centers. And the era in which we are living since 2010, the era has gone to DevOps, where you do development and operations, multiple teams or two teams, main teams working together in the entire phase. And I'll cover the DevOps in a minute here. But my applications have gone to microservices. So these applications are broken down into very small functionalities, pieces, and then are done on microservices. And these microservices run top of containers, and where we use word Docker as interchangeably with containers. So you containers are managed and orchestrated by Kubernetes. And we'll see some of that part today here, Kubernetes, and how that implementation happens on Azure cloud as a part of your DevOps cycle. And then how do you then, my application infrastructure has gone to cloud with the benefits of cloud brings. So my application nowadays run on top of cloud. So this is the era in which we are living: DevOps, microservices, containers, Docker, Kubernetes, and cloud. Now, with that, as I said, because of this DevOps, companies have realized that they can move their development process, operations process, server management process much quicker if they work two teams together, where development plus operations, two teams working together. And the revenue forecast, if you look at the DevOps in North America alone, I'm not talking about worldwide, just North America, DevOps market is, if you look at in 2014 or 2015, it was $1,248 million. And last 5 years, or last year 22, it almost gone double of that. And it's predicted that in next 4 years or next 5 years, it's going to be almost another double of what we are doing, or in fact more than double of what was in 2020. So the revenue from DevOps alone is a huge amount, and doubling every in a huge way. Now, same thing is happening with the cloud as well. So DevOps were good, and DevOps is the methodology which there's a big revenue, but DevOps now on cloud, with that we see there's a big growth on cloud market as well. So combination of development now is moving slowly towards cloud. And now within that cloud market, Azure is a big contender. Big. If you see alone in 2019 alone in quarter 4, they had 44 billion revenue. And since COVID, they've suddenly gone much bigger than in their cloud market. So the uptake of Microsoft Azure cloud has gone exponentially, and that shows from the stock prices. If you look at here, in 5 years, the stock prices have gone from $40 to $240, almost 600%. Similarly, if you look at just in 2 years, they've gone from $100 to $240, which is 250% increase in just 2 years alone. So that shows the confidence industry have in Microsoft as a cloud vendor. And that is reflected by, if you look at 90% of the Fortune 500 companies use Microsoft as their cloud provider. If you look at G or BMW or Toyota or Samsung or Ford, name a big company, they will be having workload onto the cloud. So 90% or more than 90% of Fortune 500 companies uses Microsoft as their cloud. And what that has resulted is, that has resulted huge growth in cloud job market. And if you look at the Azure consultants, the growth have in last few years have been a big massive increase on requirement of Azure consultant, those who know cloud. And if you look at the DevOps market, as per IT jobs, if you see in last 4 or 5 years have grown exponentially, and it's going to grow only. This is just a start. More and more companies are using DevOps because of the DevOps principle or benefit DevOps bring, and a lot of jobs are coming, and that is reflected. If you look at the jobs, just type DevOps jobs in US, and this is, I've taken a screenshot yesterday, DevOps jobs in USA, and then you see a DevOps jobs, and there are 100+ jobs. And it's not just in US, it's same thing in UK, 100+ jobs if you look at, or in India, 100+ jobs. And this is DevOps alone has plenty of job available. And same thing is if you look at Azure specific DevOps. So DevOps is generic, and then if you specify and go for much deeper Azure DevOps, you again will say hundreds of jobs. If you see LinkedIn, 11,000 jobs in Azure DevOps in United States. So you understand the kind of job opportunities are available. If you're already working on DevOps, which is good. If you're not, or Azure DevOps, you should be start picking up. And that shows Azure DevOps jobs in UK or India, whether you're from US, UK, Europe, Middle East, Singapore, Malaysia, Asian countries, whatever country you are, you will see the job opportunities. I've just taken a screenshot from some of the common where our users come from, US or UK or India. Majority of our users come from these 3 countries. Now, that's not it. If you look at from salaries, people ask what might be the salary for a DevOps professional in US, and salaries ranges from 200,000 and starting point might be 95,000. This is, I've just Googled, and again, these are the recruitment companies or agencies, they do the analysis. And Azure DevOps jobs, 95 starting. It could be slightly less, it could be slightly more, but you can see ranging from 95,000 to 200,000. Similarly, if you look at UK, and so a junior, if someone is just starting out, maybe 42,000. It's a quite decent salary on someone who's just starting out in DevOps. It can go up to higher 80,000 plus. And I know a lot of guys who are working with me as freelancers and earning way more than this role here. Similarly, if you look at India, huge jobs, including if you see, which is 100 lakhs, which is those who are from India can understand it's a big money. There are 12 jobs around that. But the main is these bracket, which is 6 to 10 lakhs, 10 to 15 lakhs, 15 to 20 lakhs, or 25 to 50 lakhs. 4,000 jobs, 2,600, 5,000 jobs. And not only just experienced guys, even freshers have 0 to 3 years jobs. So there are a lot of job opportunities with good salary on that. But there is a problem. What is the problem? Problem is that these days, especially after COVID, companies when they post about the job, they get lots and lots of CVs, and as a recruiter, they can only interview maybe 20, 30, and they get hundreds of CVs. So what they do, they just look at the CV and say, hey, I'm only going to call one person. So let's suppose you are the interviewer and you have to interview one person out of these two. These are two different profiles. You get two different CVs. One is on left and second is on right. Which one you are going to pick? Put it in the chat window. Are you going to pick left? Type L. If you're going to pick right, type R. And give me the reason as well which one you're going to pick. So Kamar Preeti is saying R. Tell me the reason as well why. Elgapan is saying R right certified. Premal is saying R certified. R. Yes. Dorlenine is saying yes, R right. Gree Pavan is R. R is the shows proof. Exactly, spot on. So R right one. If you have to pick one person, I'm going to pick one person because the person has the skills, or they have the certification being done. Now, if you look at the certification, we'll talk about the certifications a little bit later, but you have Microsoft arrange these certifications at a different level. There's a fundamental, which is 1-star certification. There's an associate level, which is a 2-star certification. And there is a DevOps, which is a 3-star certification. And this is what we're going to talk about today, which is DevOps Expert 3-star certification. The reason why I start with that is because that is something where you will have lots and lots of jobs. This is something, if you're doing something, do something big, that in my view. And on that journey of that, when you do DevOps, you can easily clear the fundamentals, very, very basic. So that's what we are going to cover today on DevOps here. There's some other exams as well. As your solution architect, we probably might talk about that in the end, but this is, we are going to focus on from a certification point of view. So the exam number is AZ 400, and it's mainly for someone who is working with processes, and that's what is DevOps is. DevOps is a people, process, and technology combined together. So someone who is working with people, processes, and technology to continuously deliver the business value, and that's the whole principle of DevOps. It could be developer, it could be the build person who builds these and build these from code to build, or a tester, or someone who deploy the code, or someone who build the infrastructure, or an administrator who manages the servers, or could be a security person. So, or maybe a manager who manages all these things. So end-to-end process of this looks after in DevOps, or someone who's implementing strategies for code, infrastructure, source control, security, compliance, CI, CD, testing, monitoring, and feedback. So this is for all those guys this certification is for. And there are 7 topics on this certification. We'll talk about the 7 topics once we understand first we understand a little bit theory. We'll talk about these 7 topics as well in order to come to. And it's totally possible to get this certification. And these are some of the guys from our group or from our program, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit later. So this is one, someone, Harshda, I've cleared AZ 400 DevOps. Another one, Rajesh, I've cleared AZ 400. Another one here, or another one, Vara Prasad, I've successfully cleared AZ 400. Or in fact, he's done AZ 900, 104, 400. So it's possible to do these certifications, no doubt about it. And there I can go on and on and on. But certification is not alone is not enough. And that is the question I got someone when I was asking about, someone said me, hey, depend just certification, no practical knowledge. Srinivas is absolutely right. Depends with just certification and no practical knowledge or application knowledge, then no, then it's a waste. Doing certification just for the sake of certification is not good enough. So certification alone is not enough. Certification will help you in getting your CV in front of for a call. But if you don't have a knowledge, it's waste. So that's why we don't recommend you to do certification just for the sake of doing certification. And that's why our mantra is certification alone is not enough. You have to have the knowledge, and knowledge means you need to have the basic understanding of what is DevOps. And we are going to maybe cover a little bit later in detail, but DevOps is a process between your development team, operations team, its people, and the process, where 2 teams, which is a development team and operations team, working together as a one single team, where developer develops something and ops guys say, hey, it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, you guys both talk to each other and solve it as a one single team. So that's what is a basic mantra of DevOps. So you might have seen when the requirement comes, the first thing is, and this is I'm talking about, and when I do these sessions, one of the common question is, hey, is DevOps for me? Should I learn it? Is it applicable for me? So anyone and everyone who is working into IT, DevOps is applicable for you. How? So first is go to plan. So this is where business analyst will come, and that is where you plan and say collect all your requirement gathering. And then when you plan, then developers will code and they will use tools like Git, Jira, or Confluence to store their source code, or maybe the config management, other things. So there'll be developers developing the code. Then build guy will use tools like Maven, and we'll talk about Azure related tools in a minute. So they'll be building the tools like build, and the testers will test using Selenium or JUnit. Or then release guys will deploy the release on through tools like Jenkins or JUnit. Or then infrastructure guys will build the machines. It could be machines on Azure, machines could be in AWS, machines could be in a virtual machine, Docker, containers, Kubernetes, and so on, or web apps. And then operations guys will make sure that they operate, or admin guys will operate using tools like Ansible or Chef or Puppet, or we'll see that Terraform or Kubernetes. And then monitoring guys will monitor it using Nagios, Splunk, Datadog. And it could be one single, there might be 2 or 3 guys in a team, or maybe 10-15 guys, some managing development, some build, test, release, deploy, and maybe ops. So left hand part you see is a dev, and the right hand side part is you see ops. And that's the whole mantra of software, this life cycle. So you need to have the knowledge about DevOps, you need to have the DevOps life cycle. Then you have Azure and DevOps. And again, I'm going to hand it over to Nishant to go a little bit deeper on this, but you need to have the whole process. So as I said earlier, engineers will develop in Azure. You have a tools like Visual Studio. So they will develop and put their code into a code repository like Azure Repo, which is code repository. From there, someone will test these things, and so that is where your test plans, your testing team will come into a picture. The build guys will create a pipeline which is automate it and then deploy on servers like Azure Web Apps. And then its application insight is monitoring the services and then feeding back to any changes being required to engineers. And Azure board is used by business analysts and system engineers, business analysts or the business team to collect all the requirement and making any modifications, changes. So this is whole process. And these are some of the tools which, as I said, probably I might cover in the later, or I'll ask bring Nishant. So you have Azure board, repo, which is your code repository, pipeline, Azure test plan, artifacts. And this is how the DevOps portal look like on Azure, where if you create a project, and I've created a project called K21, a demo project just before this class. So this is dev.azure.com. This is the DevOps portal. So you can go and the board, this is where all the requirements, or you can see the project wise. Repos, this is where the developers will store their code like they used to do in Git. Pipeline, this is where you automate the builds and create a pipeline. Test plan, this is where testers will test it or write all the test plans and give a single pane of view. Or artifacts, generated artifacts. So developers will develop the code and go and put it into artifacts. And so another question is, or you should be familiar with what is continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment DevOps. So I'm going to, as I said, going to bring Nishant as well on this. And then you're going to develop all these, automate it, and then deploy them maybe in a database or a web apps or a web server, or it could be on the cloud, or you can do it on-premise as well. I'm taking cloud here because that's where you should be moving towards. And this should be something about blue-green deployment. We'll talk about that later, but blue-green environment, making sure you're familiar with blue-green deployment. And this is the pipeline which I was talking about, automating the cloud build. So these are my different environments: dev environment, QA environment, prod environment. And within prod, we have one environment called as blue environment, second environment called as green environment. And then that's what we're going to look at that so that you deploy your application code, different version of code, and test it without any downtime. This is where my code pipeline, which I'm automating this, my testing it or deploying it to dev pipeline. This is my QA staging pipeline. And once I get approval, and then it can deploy on production. And this is all through automation. That is where CD, continuous deployment. You have build, which is building the developers have developed the code from here and have put it into code here, and which triggers a build here that will go and build a solution onto the Azure using Azure CI tool like build. that will generate an artifact, which could be EAR file, which is an enterprise archive. It could be a WAR file. It could be an image. It could be a .NET application. It could be anything that your build will convert and then go and put it into the uh, uh, artifact, which is a build repository. And from there, my pipeline will pick it and deploy it, automated it. So guys, am I making sense? Is it all making sense? Is it all flowing, or am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Is it all making sense? Mohammed is saying one question, good question. Do I need to have coding skill to move into DevOps? No, there's no coding skill required for that. No, this is those who are developer, they will develop the code. You are not going to do it. Yes, good, all smooth, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Well done. And this is what for testers. The testers will test and plan. So the testers, this is how you see test plan, and especially those who are coming from testing background, you might have seen the charts like that, where you can see one single pane to see what is the execution of your test cases, how many are run, how many are not run, how many are passed, how many are failed, how many are blocked. And then you can test bit by based on maybe the functionality, the stats of like on which environment, development environment, how many are testing, ready for testing. You can all check off all these things, who's owning, like if you're a test team, who owns how many tickets, how many are open, how many are closed. So this is all tools available for QA and testers. A lot of guys come from a QA background. Tester is DevOps for me. Yes. So this is where your role will come. Now, if you're coming from an infra background or admin background, you might have heard of Docker and Kubernetes. Towards end, I'm going to discuss a little bit about Docker and Kubernetes. We'll keep it high level because we have a lot to cover, but you might have heard of word containers and Kubernetes. So you'll be building as an infra guy. And in that, you have something called as images. So your containers run from images. I'm going to talk about, I'll not tell it here. Maybe I'll go a little bit deep later because I want to hand it over to Nishant as quickly as possible so we can learn from him and do the demo as well. So you have Azure Container Registry, ACA and AKS. So these are the deployment on Kubernetes and Docker on Azure Cloud. Then you have, if you're coming from infra and config management guys, so you'll be doing infra and config. You might have heard of Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Terraform, Cloud Init, Vagrant. So these are some of the tools. Not all, doesn't need to be all, but at least have an understanding so you can talk and then pick one or two tools. So infra and config if I'm coming from config management. So you can use Chef with Azure. So Chef is, you can deploy Chef directly on Azure Cloud, or you can also integrate Chef servers from the marketplace. So you can integrate and extend and use Chef to automate the build on cloud. Similarly, you can have Puppet. So the Puppet has an agent. So, and we'll see Ansible as well in a minute. So you can again deploy Puppet for a configuration management tool, or you can do Ansible as well. And this is all part of DevOps. You'll be learning all these things as a part of DevOps, Ansible. So unlike Puppet or Chef, Ansible is agentless. That's why people like it. So you don't have to install any software on the machines on which you're going to manage. So how do you configure and run Ansible with Azure or Terraform? Terraform can automate all your cloud build. So this is infrastructure as code. So should be knowing a little bit about Terraform on Azure. How do you integrate Terraform on Azure? So this is for infra guys, and then comes security. Now security guys come and say, hey, is this DevOps for security? Yes. Now you might have heard of DevOps and security, DevSecOps. So security guys, earlier security used to be in the end, and a lot of releases or go lives used to fail because security comes at a very later stage, or used to come at a very late stage. Where now security is at a very early stage, you move it to the left hand side, rugged DevOps. You mix a security team as well now, not only development on operations, but you also have security team. So you have DevSecOps. And then for them, you have security center in Azure. So you can see all the policies, security compliance, what is secure or not. So you can see policy compliance or resource security and hygiene, whether how many threat protections you have, web application firewall, or intrusion detection systems on that. So you as a security engineer should be having that knowledge, or DevSecOps professional have some knowledge. So just to do a quick recap on what you should have. And again, as I said, certification is important. You should do the certification, but certification alone is not enough. You have to have the knowledge what is DevOps, this whole life cycle of DevOps. Now, you may not be doing all the part. You will have some basic understanding of some, but you'll be either doing development or build or tester or security or config management or maybe administrator. One of these different roles I said, or maybe more than one. So these are some of the tools you should be familiar, like Azure tools, CI/CD, should be familiar with that. And then blue-green deployments, or this whole CI/CD automation. And that's what people look for certificate from knowledge point of view. Testers, for infra guys, for config management, for Chef with Azure, Puppets, Azure, Terraform, DevSecOps, very important as well nowadays, security. So there is a step-by-step roadmap we recommend you. It's a 12-week roadmap or framework which we have developed, where we talk you from basic concepts, right from developing an instrumentation strategy. This all focused on certification AZ400, but with a lot of practical knowledge, theory plus practical, site reliability engineer strategy. How do you strategize saying that you don't get the downtime, or you don't have the failures in your system, or minimize those failures much ahead. Develop a security and compliance plan, or design governance, enforce policies or security policies, or maybe manage the source control if you're coming from a developer background, source control, branching, other things. Or how do you integrate your source control with and configure repositories? Or maybe if you're coming from an integration point of view, continuous integration or deployment, continuous deployment or continuous delivery. How do you do that? If you're coming from an ops guy, how do you build a build strategy, deployment, server build strategy, and then managing, orchestrating, automating these builds. And once you have learned all this, then do some project work. So end-to-end project work, get certified, prepare for the exam, do some interview questions, and start applying for the job. This is the mantra of success that you do. So what we have done is we have put all of this, what we have said, it's 12-week program into a package or the framework, and it's a training program which I'm going to talk in the end. But just wanted to give you a warm up here that this is what I'm going to present at the towards end, which is a step-by-step comprehensive program, right? Complete keeping beginners in mind, where we cover all these things that we mentioned in a 26 module program with 100 plus lessons, 25 plus hands-on lab. And this is very important, that theoretical, not theoretical. Of course, you should have the concept, but practical hands-on lab. You're going to develop, or sorry, you're going to not develop, you're going to actually deploy and configure all those things that we mentioned, and then prepare for the exam with sample questions. And then the most important is 1 year on-job support. So if you're interested, if you like what you're going to do today, we're going to give you a lot of value. We're going to give you a demo. If you like today, I would love you to join the part of this program. And it has helped a lot of other students. We have only 50 seats. It's on first come, first serve basis. And we'll talk about that. So these are some extensive hands-on lab we recommend, right from keeping beginners all the way to all of that I said, Chef, configuring with Chef with Azure, Puppet with Azure, how to deploy the existing application, Terraform with Azure, and then integration with DevOps, and then teams, different teams, Sonar Cube if you're coming from a testing background, or security as well. So all these 26 labs followed by the sample questions. So these are sample exam questions and 100 plus exam questions. So you can see whatever you're learning, are you ready for exam? Have you learned it well enough or not as well? So how do you look? We'll take some of the exams questions a little bit later. So you'll get something similar to what you get in exam. And again, as I said, it's totally possible. So and that is how you get job as well, in a higher paid job. And take an example of Dinesh. And Dinesh came like similar to you in one of these, and he joined the program. He said, I got a technical program manager on cloud, just received an offer last week. And the certification lections helped me to show some of the case studies, plus my program manager experience helped me a lot. And now he's moving towards solution architect on AZ304, which is a solution architect certification. Or maybe you have a gap and you're struggling to find a job. This is Raz Lakshmi. She is based in US, and she had a break of 2 years because of her daughter's birth. So said, hope you remember that I had a break in my career. I had an in-person interview. I was so confident on technical part. She joined in Infosys in US. Or maybe you're doing it for maybe just to gain some confidence in your project. So it's all possible. Another one here, I'm going to talk about these a little bit later. I want you to come straight to the point. Now, if you stay till end, as I said, and if you take action, fast action, which we'll be talking about in, I'll take in a minute. So you can get that a bonus. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's only for fast action takers. So I said to you, there are a lot of jobs about DevOps, and then a lot more in Azure focused, higher paid, and further higher paid, which is like 200,000 or plus you see. And that is where Azure Kubernetes on jobs in US, how to deploy Azure Kubernetes Service AKS on top of our containers. So you have jobs on Azure Kubernetes Service in US, UK, or India, and these are very premium jobs, very highly paid jobs, deployment of Kubernetes on Azure. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, as I said. Once we tell and inform, I'm going to go into this architecture and explain that. So this is the Kubernetes architecture. And similar to that, then you can deploy on Azure, which is Azure Kubernetes Service. We'll talk about what are these. And these are virtual networks. These are disks, which is for storage. Network is this Kubernetes cluster will need network. And then you can do with other integrations like load balancers, firewall, and other security. So what is these? And then how do you do the CI/CD on this Azure Kubernetes, which is how do you automate this cloud build? We're going to cover all this with extensive hands-on lab on where you deploy in registry. What is registry? We'll talk about that as well. Containers, Kubernetes. We'll talk all these deployments on practical knowledge. This is all hands-on lab you'll be performing. And we have a separate program worth $497, which we are going to give you absolutely free. As I said, it's on first come, first serve, 50 seats only on, but only while we are in the session. So, and as I said, everything is tried and tested and by a lot of our students. So this is another Yogi. This is again another one for Microsoft Certified DevOps. But this is another Gargi. She is again part of now DevOps, DevSecOps, and CK, so Kubernetes. So whatever we are going to talk about here today is all with program with that works. And not only these, I have lots and lots of success stories like that on our website on that. And not only individuals, we also help a lot of corporates, big corporates across globe, US, UK, Middle East, India, and Europe and Australia. And so we have these customers. Some of them you already know, some of you may not be, but these are some of our premium customers. So if you are looking for a small workshop where we go deep, this is pre-COVID, we do online as well as in classroom these trainings. So with that, I've taken already a lot of your time. I'm going to give a lot of value, and this is what we have mentioned we are going to cover. The important point is about demo. I want to focus on demo so you can understand the power of the CI/CD or blue-green deployment. So today we are going to just show you manually this blue-green deployment, what does mean and how it's being done. But then we are going to focus or later maybe in, if you do decide to join the program, we have this automation where you will be setting up CI/CD continuous integration automation, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, before I hand it over, very quick introduction about me. This is a very old photo of me. I've changed a lot. I've grown a lot. It's around 8-9 years old photo, but I have 21 years now. It's again screenshot I need to update. 21st year, I started my career in year 2000, and I've written a couple of books, and I'm an author as well as I present individuals, but I have now trained more than 5.5 or 5,700 something numbers on individuals like you to learn cloud and cloud native. And so my main intention is to help others or everyone to go and move on to cloud. But the main is Nishant. He has extensive IT knowledge on cloud. He has done pretty much every cloud or Azure cloud specific certification you can think of. He's a Microsoft certified trainer, and he's a DevOps engineer certified. And not only that, he not only just teaches, but also have consulted big corporates like Wipro or Infosys or Microsoft or Vodafone or AstraZeneca, Accenture, IBM, Emirates, name list goes on. He has a lot of knowledge, not only DevOps, but also AI, ML. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But why don't you go and introduce yourself now, and then I'll hand it over to Nishant then. So if you're in DevOps or cloud, if you're a beginner, type B. If you know a little bit, you're already working on cloud, but not certified, then type I for intermediate. And if you're already certified as your DevOps, then type E. So I can see this will help us to go maybe a little bit deep or keep it high level. Type B for beginner, I for intermediate, and E for expert. And then make sure that you make this session workshop interactive, focus, and ask a lot of questions. If there is any question I see, okay, I'll be interrupting. There are a lot of B. There's a good chunk of I as well. So there's a mix, but I don't see any E. Karthikeyan is B. There's one Ravi is I. There's a lot of B's. Jagun is I, and there's a lot of B's. Brilliant. Okay. So I think Nishant, Why don't you go and let me put you, there's only one expert. I see Nishant is saying expert. Nishant, I hope you're not the same Nishant. This is Nishant as well.
No, sir.
So Nishant, I'm going to hand it over to you. For some reason, I can't find you. Maybe attendees, no, got it. So Nishant, I'm going to hand it over to you. And 1 second, why don't you just give 1 minute about intro yourself? Oh, thanks, my team have already given you, I think, made you presenter. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Great.
thanks for that. That was a kind of a long introduction about a lot of things out in there, and I believe the people love that. So hey everyone, this is Nishant again, and Atul has given a very good introduction about me, and I don't think I need to just take you through that again. And I know I'm a guy who love a lot of things in a demo perspective, and again, it's been like you people who are listening to most of the things for long run. Now let me just give you about some pictures on certain factors, like a little on the words like what is a DevOps, and then what we are going to basically look in here. And followed by that, I'll be just taking you through a demo, a practical hands-on demo, like what we discussed earlier, a blue-green deployment with the Azure App Services. So, well, anytime, any questions you get, write it in the chat panel. And again, I'll not just bore you again with a lot of slides just to make it clear, like we'll have a short and crisp demo that will be more interesting. But as mentioned by Atul earlier, in a simple word, what is DevOps? That's basically a very, very big bridge which was there earlier, which has been built. In a simple word, there used to days where people used to say something, that is developers and then operations team. So developer develop the code and they give it to the operations, and now the operations come up with some problem saying that, hey, it's your mistake, who's the developer is. Or the other way around, developers put a blame on the operations team stating that it's the mistake of the operations, which is typically not letting the code to be working in the way they expected it to. Now that's where the DevOps came into line to change the market, where you don't have to fight anymore. Let's make it clear. Both dev and operations become combined together, where both of you in sync, both of you communicate, both of you discuss and come up with a validated solution. That's what your DevOps is about. Now your software lifecycle, as Abdul mentioned earlier, you plan a work that you're going to deliver, the same thing it is. I'll just give a small recap on that. So you plan what you want to do, then you code your code, which is going to be by using version controlling or source controlling choices you have. Then you go to your building option where you build your code. Followed by that, you're going to typically understand the bugs you have in the code, or is there any error in your code, you just come to know. Then you do test on your code, because it's very important factor where we are not going to release a code that is not going to be up to the standards that we have. And for that, there are plenty of tools, which means DevOps is not about the tools that you get there, but it's about giving you a platform where you can use those tools into the environment. And once you test your code and you feel the confidence that yes, this is the perfect code I'm going to release, you go to the next phase of releasing, which means you are going to release your code to a place where it is going to be used as an application. Then that comes the deployment phase, which means the release phase is where your deployment takes place, where during the release process, you deploy the code to a kind of orchestration services like Service Fabric or Kubernetes, Docker containerized environments, Amazon Web Services, or Google Cloud Platform, who cares, but it can be anywhere, including on premises. So you can deploy anywhere you want, preferably. And again, for management, which means like you will have to do some configuration management, infrastructure deployment before you deploy the code and all these. So we bring things into the line. So that's where your Service Fabric or Kubernetes or Ansible, we use them just to ensure that there is no manual management of servers. Typically, you might have thousands of servers in an enterprise environment, and it's not easy to manage individual server. So that's where DevOps practices combined with certain orchestrations and automations you use, so that you don't have the blame of putting your efforts and getting the job done. And finally, monitoring, which becomes important thing. So it can be application monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, security level monitoring, which could be a part of the DevOps environment. Now, just mentioning, these are your flows of operations that anyone who is going to be termed as a DevOps engineer. You either play an important role just in the coding part, sometimes you play a role in the build part and test part and release part, sometimes in monitor. So it depends on the organization, the job role you belong to. But to be called as a DevOps engineer, you are going to learn all these things, which is going to help you to play your job role everywhere in the DevOps environment. Now, whatever we saw in the last couple.
Hey, sorry, but a very good presentation, a very good explanation here. So as we said, Nishant discussed, if you think I've covered, and if you, just because I've added a slide, you don't need to cover that again. If you feel free to skip if you think I've already covered for that. But this, okay, so I don't want you to do more, and I don't want to board with them, but it was a very good explanation or onto that. If you want to skip something, please feel free, because I just presented that.
I get that.
I thought it will be for completeness. Feel free to skip that. Okay. Now, one question I'll take, and there are a lot of other questions are coming, guys. I'm answering all the questions. One question was about presentation. The presentation is only for those, will we get a presentation? Presentation is only for those who do decide to join the program. It will be inside the portal, but you will get a recording for, I think, couple of days. It will be available on our portal, like on a page, which will take it down. So make sure you watch the replay if you want. Replay will be available only for those who watch or stay till end. That's another thing. Second thing, one was about someone was asking about program. We are going to cover all the questions about program. Don't worry, people have already started asking about questions. We'll answer that, but keep that coming. So yes, we are good. So question was, will you provide a cloud access for labs? We'll talk about as well. Yes, you will, and we'll explain you how you can get hold of those labs as well. We'll cover that, but yes, we're going to give you a step-by-step instructions on how to create an account on both developer portal as well as Azure portal, so that you can learn and do it yourself, and you will get it absolutely free. You don't need to worry about. There are a lot of other things are coming about program, which I'll cover. That's which we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, you can't see the questions, Shraddha. It's only visible to me, but I'll try to answer as many questions as I can here. Now, when I'm answering, I hope you're seeing the question as well. I'm answering to all. If I think question is good, I'm not sure whether you can see the question as well. So I've just answered someone Venkat's question. If you can see their answers, otherwise I'll try to put a short question as well. With that, I'll not interrupt much. Over to you, Nishant. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So well, coming back to the thing now, what is Azure DevOps? So ultimately, it's same. It's all about a practice of bridging the gap between your developers and the operations team. And now coming to that, so the way Azure has designed this DevOps environment is like, it's not just that you do things by using some kind of command line or scripting, but Microsoft is being famous for its methodology of UI. So they give you the DevOps practice through UIs, which means now you can have a plan where an engineering team can sit in the line, can design some work items, which is typically done in the boards, which means I ask my team, hey Nishant, hey Atul, you people take this particular work, you develop a solution this way, I'm assigning a work item to them. So the team takes this to line, where through Visual Studio or Java IDE or any other tool to which they rely on, they develop a solution. They now particularly deploy that solution back to repositories like a version control or source control options you have, where they will be also focusing on the test plans, whichever you have to be considerably taken. Then the code is being built continuously, and that's being tested continuously, and that's being released continuously to app service like this, where I, as an engineer or the DevOps team or application monitoring people who can be a developer sometimes, we see the performance factors of your application by directly checking out the performance of it. So this is a process where, in a simple word, a code which is developed by my developer, the moment it is being developed, it is being continuously written and continuously being delivered to the end target. So that is the overall process of continuous integration and delivery. So now the question is how the quality is being brought into the picture. So you said some people of your team to write your code and deliver it. Now that is where the point comes. How the code is written, what is the quality of it, what is the outcome of it. Now this overall analysis which you make in this process, that is where the entire heart of the DevOps comes to the line. Now, these are all some factors that you can rely on. Like Atul discussed earlier, you have dashboards where you can basically pin the work items, or you can use boards to plan work items, like to whom what work has to be given. Because you take a big application, it's plenty of modules combined together. Now we can't let everybody to work on everything. So we decide the work, we give them a time frame. So you should complete the following work within this particular time frame. So that could be a plan you can do in work items, which is a part of Azure boards. The next one, once a work item is given to somebody, you have repository, which means a code has to be maintained somewhere, which could be developed by a developer and being given to cloud environment like DevOps. So repositories is the place where you bring the code. Now the code that comes in here, we don't know how better it is, whether it's perfectly written or there are some bugs in it, or is that meeting my test cases. So we will use pipelines for that, a process where a code comes in here is being tested, a process where the code is being built, a process where the code is being analyzed for all the possibilities, and then the code is coming to be released. Now your test plans, ultimately it's a toolkit which you use, where you specify like what are all the test cases that has to be executed, or what is the confidence of the test cases that were successful, that were failed. All those trackings you can do from this phase. And apart from that, you have your artifacts as a service, which is again a part of the DevOps in Azure, where you can consider that whatever the build operation happens in this pipelines, they has to be released to a release pipeline. So the staging artifacts, those will be available here, which is built, or sometimes it can be even artifacts that you develop in your organization to give it to your team. So those artifacts could be like any packages you build for internal collaboration. So all these in one place, so you don't have to run for a Jira board for planning the work items, you don't have to run to GitHub or Git for planning the code, you don't have to run behind any third party services like Jenkins or somewhere to plan a pipeline, or you don't have to third partily go and rely on some test services or some third party services like NuGet or npm for maintaining packages. Everything in one place, and that's your DevOps. Now coming to the continuous integration and delivery, so just mentioning the major factor. So you write the code based on the given work to you, and the code is written back to the particular environment where the code is stored, which can be GitHub, Git repo, or it can be Azure repositories of DevOps. Now the code is being built, which is going to be a process where it's been verified is that a proper code which will compile. Now the next thing would be the integration phase, where the code which is being built is being continuously going through test cases, which means the code which you write, it's not just about compilation, but we see the factors where is that readily available for utilization, is there any bug in it, is there a code that is copied by a developer somewhere else, is that adding value to my solution, which means a complete testing as well as building the code you take place. This process is called continuous integration, which means the moment my developer writes the code and gives to the DevOps, it will take the code through a rigorous testing and build operation. So if this fails, then the code is marked as not useful, then the developer will get a feedback, he will work on that and get back to the line again. Now once this is over, then the next one would be like your release phase, which means the code that has successfully passed this particular testing phase and build phase, it will go through a release, which could be the continuous delivery. Now, what could be the difference between the continuous delivery and deployment? So continuous delivery is a process of taking the code from your build operation to release phase. And now when the code is in the release phase, the next question would be that your deployment part, that is where your code is going to get deployed. And ultimately, so both these release and deploy, people mostly get confused. In a simplified word, this continuous delivery would be a concept where your release pipeline takes your code and is planning to deliver the code to the various phases like dev, testing, and QA in production. Whereas the deploy part, which is in the line, this could be a phase where your code, whichever you have ready, is going to be deployed into the servers, on-prem, Azure, or anywhere else. And finally, your operations part, where your DevOps is now being continuously doing this overall approach in one place. That's your DevOps. Now, this was something which Atul discussed earlier. Now, we are not going to see our blue-green deployment in this overall procedure, because this takes around few hours of time to explore everything in depth and implement it. Since we have a short span of time, we'll see the concept of blue-green deployment with pipelines, but not the DevOps pipelines directly. But in a top level,
Sorry, just to highlight and to for everyone's benefit, in the training program that we mentioned, we're going to cover all this. Just wanted to highlight everyone, nothing to worry about. We are going to cover that, but because as Nishant said, it's going to take a little bit longer. That's why. And Nishant, thank you very much for that CI/CD explanation. It was brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, over to you.
Well, this one is the original practice of your blue-green deployment or your canary releases or any other feature flag management, which are some of the best practices of DevOps we use today. When you real-time plan it in your enterprise through DevOps, this is how you plan it, where you give the work items to the team. Developer is going to develop the components and write the code here, where the code is being built, where the complete build operation happens with the test cases. Then the built source code is being given to the next phase, where your artifacts come to the release pipeline. Now this is where your dev, QA, production, where in the production your staging slot, which is going to be the blue-green environment, you bring to the line. Now we do the same right this point of time when we do the demo, but in a top level, we will write the code, developer will be writing the code directly to the repo, and from repo we directly build and release the code to the production at this point of time to reduce the time or that we spend on designing each phase. And also we'll see the only aspect of the blue green deployment in here that could make the things better for us. Now, just mentioning before going to the demo, where do we deploy the source code? The source code that we are going to deploy now as a blue-green deployment environment, it will be done into Azure App Service, or you can call it as web app. Now, what is a web app? So now, just imagine a scenario. Let's go back like few years back when I used to get a requirement when there was no concept of cloud. Let's say 10 years back when I was not into this. The question was like, when my clients come to me, specify that this is the requirement, the first thing that comes to mind for hosting an application would be deploy a server, which could be a physical server on which a virtual machine is deployed. You install the required components for the application to work and you deploy it. So that's a traditional web hosting technique we used to follow. But then came the practices where we got a lot of questions like, what is the guarantee of availability? What is my pricing factor? What if there is a new hardware that comes in the market? How do I purchase it? And that's why we migrated to cloud with a lot of benefits. And now your cloud service providers like Azure and AWS, they are selling some components called PaaS, or platform as a service, you can call it. Now, what do you mean by this term PaaS, or platform as a service? Now, you don't worry about the burden of managing your infrastructure. So your platform, they are taking care of everything, the underlying physical CPU core and RAM components, the physical hardware. The cloud service provider is taking care of it. Now you say, I want to host a PHP application, then deployment of a server running with PHP frameworks in it, and the hosting space for the PHP application, it's readily given to you. So you don't have to now worry about maintenance of the server, like patching the operating system of the server, starting the server, stopping your server, or the other part, the scaling part as well. Of course, scaling is something you can do, but you can also set some automation rules where if you set up some rules like if my incoming traffic crosses so and so number of users, add one instance of server. Such scaling rules you can set, which means you now continuously focus on adding the business value rather than focusing on infrastructure maintenance. And that's something that is taken care by your Fabric controller. So Fabric controller is a term that is of Azure environment. Today, Microsoft is relying on the Fabric controller, which is a technology that is helping Azure to take control over every component that comes in the Azure. Now, this Service Fabric is not a Fabric controller. This is again a separate service, where Service Fabric is typically a service from Azure for microservice deployment. So you can deploy microservices architecture in there, which could be acting like a platform as a service as well. Now let's forget that. Coming to the major aspect, the web apps we are playing with, which could be a managed service where we people will be using the app service. Now see, for people who have questions, see, Microsoft is a proprietary environment, which means they have their own products. Will they support for open source? Just to make it clear, Microsoft supports for all these. So when you deploy a VM in Azure platform, you can deploy a Linux or Windows machine. You deploy a web app in Azure, you can deploy a .NET-based web app, Java-based one, Node.js, or it could be even Python, PHP, and Ruby. So of course, only this is the support matrix. Beyond that, if you want to go, it doesn't support, but this is quite decent for any people who want to use Azure App Service for any open source stack, it can be, or Microsoft stack. Now the term blue-green deployment, what is it and why is it and how it is going to use an organization to make it a better one? Now blue-green is very simple term. So blue or green, in a simplified way, your blue is going to be my production environment. Typically, I'm going to have in my organization, which is already being used. Now imagine this, any e-commerce applications you can take that you can see one of the global services you can take the Amazon shopping application. Now you used to see the Amazon shopping application. You go into the website anytime, you can see it works 24/7, but you can expect an update anytime. And when there is an update happening, Amazon shopping site is never crashed down. And why it happens is because of this strategy. So blue site will be the production site, which is always up and running for you. And what happens now, your end user has always been routed with the traffic into it. And tomorrow, when Amazon comes with a newer version of the production website, they are not going to update this environment directly. So they will have a green site, a site in which they will be having their content readily available, and they will be using this particular green site, which is going to be used, or in other words, it's a standby environment near the production. And when they want to bring it live, they do an operation called swapping, where the content in the production, the older production will be taken to a staging environment, and the latest production which was developed this will be brought into the latest production. In a simple word, it's a concept where you're not having any downtime, but you're giving an updated website or updated application or updated UI or any update to the customer without disturbing their flow or having any data loss. And this concept is called blue-green deployment. Now, how do I achieve it in Azure platform? So very interesting factor, if you see Microsoft Azure Web Apps, they support for a concept called deployment slots, wherein which you can see there will be one production environment by default. But apart from that, by using this add slot option, anytime you can add some staging slots, could be your staging environments. So that could be your green and blue environments that you can bring to the line. It's a technical term practically. Apart from that, there is no technical content that comes in the platform, but you should use these tactics where you deploy a workload to them. Then you do a concept called swapping, where your content in the production you swap to staging, and the content in the staging you take to production. This way you make your deployment happen. So again, I don't like to mention these in slides. Let's rock it in a practical way. So a demo on.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, brilliant, Nishant. I must say that from theory itself, I was able to understand, and I'm sure you'll do wonders. But before I go move further, guys, are you all making? Is it all making sense? Before we go on demo, are you all ready for the demo? Is it all making sense what you've learned? Just give me a little hands up, because I'm pretty impressed. That yes, I already knew that. I know because we've done yes. I'm getting a lot of yes. Brilliant. So what you are going to see is we have taken one of the labs from the training program that we mentioned at the start, and I'm going to discuss a little bit more about where we are going to do deployment. We are doing it manual blue green, but in the actual world you can automate this using CI/CD pipeline. We'll cover that as well. So Shraddha is saying yes, it is just beautiful, exactly what I needed. Brilliant. Yes, Bharat, we're starting the demo. So over to you. I'll not hold up anything. Over to you. A lot of guys are also asking about a course as well. We'll stay tuned. We'll be talking about Nived, John, Samuel. We'll talk all that about. Stay tuned. Over to you, Nishant. Over to you.
Thank you. So well, just take a look. For this given demo, you need an Azure account, whereas Atul mentioned, you can just check it out. They have a lab environment set up for you, which you can get an instruction about. Followed by that, in case if somebody wants to activate a free trial account, you can just Google it, like Azure free trial account. You can just search for it.
We have a guide as well, k2academy.com/Azure02. We'll send an email. Let's log in and show if you can. Yeah. So Azure02, k2academy.com. Yeah. Azure02.
Let me just put this in here, or you can just share the link in the chat, please.
Yeah, my team will share and we'll put it in an email address, k2academy.com/Azure02. I don't want you to go right now. You will have a lot of time. I want you to focus and look at the demo, understand them, and then we'll talk about that. Over to you.
Yeah. So just in case you want to get an account, you can activate from here by just Googling it. You'll just come to know. But just coming back to the line, now anybody who wants to do any deployment, first of all, you should think about it. There are two things. One is portal.azure.com, which is the Azure platform. Where in this given scenario, we will be doing our deployment directly in the platform of Azure with a Visual Studio as my development tool. But do remember, in a real-time scenario, when you want to deal with Azure DevOps service, you'll have to go to this dev.azure.com, which is a separate platform of Azure for DevOps. So they are giving a separate tool of DevOps, which you can typically use, where it's free of cost. Anybody can go here and anybody can sign up with an account in here, which is a practical thing. Now, this you'll come to know. Now let's come back to this Azure part. Since the time is running, let me not waste your time and let me not pull the things to the line off. So first, let's have a web app deployed, which is going to be my imaginary situation here, where it could be a production environment in which you are about to host an application. Now for doing the same, let's say in this portal, in the top left corner, you can see three horizontal lines you have. You can go to this, or you can directly click this option, which is create a resource. So anywhere you go, you have this. This option will help you to create any resource in Azure platform where we'll pick up web app. What is web app? Platform as a service for hosting your applications in Azure. Now this web app requires a subscription to be specified. Now for me, it's MCT. For you people, it could be free trial or Azure Pass, whichever you activate. That is, once you activate the free trial account, you get this. Now don't worry, focus on the demo. You have a step-by-step hands-on lab guide, and also you can find the same in the recording. So later you try this demo, you can definitely do it. Now my resource group is nothing but a folder. Now this folder is for logical grouping of entities in Azure. So let's create one. So I'll choose create new and name it as web_app_rg, web app resource group. Now, instance details, this could be the DNS of your web server. For example, I'll say Azure DevOps. Now you see this Azure DevOps, if I say, it shows a red mark says that this name is not available because there could be somebody who is already using it. Let's say Azure DevOps demo, and in that case, it's not available. Some number I'll say. So Azure DevOps demo 123.azurewebsites.net could be my DNS in which my production would be running in this scenario. Followed by the same, you have the publish method in here. So publish method, in the sense, this is typically indicating about how the developer is going to write the code, whether it's a program or it's going to be a Docker containerized solution. Let's say it's going to be code wherein we are indicating that I'll be writing the program. So Docker containers is something which is an interesting one, yet it's a very depth concept which we can look later. For now, we can say code. Now my target is the platform. The runtime stack indicates the platform in which you want to deploy, but you can see your .NET, Java, PHP, Python, Ruby, all these you have. So for example, let's preferably say I want to use .NET Core 3.1, which is of long-term support, which means I'm going to develop an application which could be on .NET Core 3.1. Now operating system. So I'm in this scenario, I'm going to develop my application on a Windows platform. So let this be Windows. And this means you get a web app that will be installed with a Windows operating system, which could be practically a Windows Server operating system, but you can't change it once deployed it. But these things like runtime stack, you can change it when you want, even after deployments. Now, this is a very important factor, which country in which you are going to deploy this app service, because the nearby that to your customer, it will reduce the latency. Suppose I'm in India and I try to deploy this in, let's say, for example, East US, then I should cross many physical locations to reach this, which means my customers in India will face latency, but any customer from US, if he makes a request, for him, the latency will be less. Let's go with this for this time being. Now, what is this app service plan? This indicates the pricing factor, how much money you're going to spend on the whole component. So this is just a naming convention. Let's leave that. If you go down, you can see this. Standard S1 is the default plan you get, which is for production. But if you click on change size, there are different sizes in it. And these sizes, if you preferably take a look, you have development and testing pricing to your production isolated, and each one, they have their benefits in it. And normally this is something you don't select it. Your architecting team come up with the proper pricing and sizing. So you just go with the given architecture. So preferably in production, we use these pricings. And at this point of time, let's use this default pricing so you don't have to change anything. So this is default one. But this is a very crucial thing for pricing factor, which I don't, or you don't have to do anything to be assessed as a DevOps engineer. So this is something the architecting team comes up with a report which we'll use and plan it. So we'll go with standard S1 in this case, but just remember this is for price factors and number of users the web service can handle at a time. Now when I go to next, the monitoring part, this is to give
Sorry to interrupt. Like I think there are a lot of guys questions are asking about how long this demo will take and when the session will end. And I also have Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes as your container, and I don't want to hold up too much onto that. So maybe if you can keep it like I wanted to cover the deployment slot, and of course, yeah, there is a tags and monitoring, but I leave it to you. If you can just a little bit cover on main focus, which is about the slots.
Sure,
but,
sure. I'll take care of it.
If people think that they are going okay, and if we can continue, I don't mind. But a lot of guys are asking about the timing, so I don't know. We have slightly gone and slightly longer than I usually do. But you're doing brilliant job, I must say that. Nishant, as always, over to you. And a lot of guys are saying, I'm not a developer. Do you need to be a development? No, you don't need a developer. You don't need to development to do Azure DevOps, and nor do you need a solution architect. We'll cover that, what is required, and we'll cover that as well inside. So nothing to worry about. Over to you, Nishant.
Yeah. So just mentioning, this is for developer feedback, which will not need at this point of time. So we'll go with no, that's it. You can now click on review plus create. So tags and all these, ultimately we as a DevOps team, we don't need that. So we'll keep it aside. Now this would be deploying a VM, which is managed by Microsoft on clicking this create, which could be running with the .NET Core of version 3.1 running in it. Now very quickly, I'm going to show you, I thought of doing the deployment through Visual Studio and all these, but I can see people are a bit kind of urgency. So I don't want to take too much of your time, which will go. So let me show you the deployment of application in a slight simplified fashion directly in here through the portal, and then integration with a Git environment just in the case, and how that staging will look in there, and how do you do a deployment of swapping without downtime, we'll take a look. You see, in a moment, you will get your app service created, and then you can access your own web application running in it. Now, while this is in the line, just for your information, we'll be using the GitHub as well. I'll come to that. Now you can see my web app is deployed. On clicking go to resource, I can see my app service which I've created, which is this one. When you click browse, you can see this one as a default website in it. You can imaginarily consider this. This is a website which is given by Microsoft, which is a default homepage. Now, and there are many practices. You can use FileZilla, Visual Studio, DevOps pipelines, or you can even publish the code through FTP. Different methods you can use to publish the code. I'll go in a simplified way. Azure offers an option called a feature called Kudu Console, where you can manage the source code of the web server. Like in the same URL, you can see if I include a term called dot, there is my app service name dot scm.azurewebsites.net. Just in case going with this one, it will let you to log in into the root folder of this virtual machine where your app service is running. So quickly, I'll get into the root folder now, where I'm going to host a simple HTML file just for time being. So there is a debug console option. Let me get into, and there is a command prompt. Let me just pick this. Now this will take me to the root level folder of this server where this app service is running. See this? This is my site folder. If I get into, I have my www root folder inside, and here you can see this is the file which we saw when we made the browse access to this website. Say for example, for just showing the given scenario, I'll add a file in here. I'll click the plus button and say new file, name it as index.html just for sake of this deployment, index.html, and I hit enter. Now note this, in my website, if I make a refresh now, at this point of time, I don't see anything because I didn't write any content in it. Just stay for a moment, I'll edit this index.html file. I'll say this is my prod site, just to make you understand the difference after swapping is done. So this is my prod site, I wrote it, and let me save this, which means when I browse this URL, I get a response from this production website you can consider. Now this could be a production where your end customer continuously comes in and makes a request to the website. Now, what if my developer team, he or she wants to develop the code and they want to update the production? That is where we don't like the team to update the code in here. That is the scenario where in your production web app, you have a choice. On the left side, we can see something called deployment slots. Now, what is your deployment slot? This is a place where you can create an additional slot apart from the current production one for staging. Say for example, there is a button called add slot. Let me click this, and I'm naming the slot. For example, I'll name it as staging, which means my production URL, which is this one, is the same you get in here. So Azure DevOps demo 123-staging.azurewebsites.net would be your particular development or staging slot in the scenarios. Now I don't want to clone any settings from it. So if in case you want to clone any settings you made to your production slot, you can pick that, and settings like connections or any other variables you set up, you can clone it. For time being, we don't want, so we'll do not clone anything. And I'll click add, which creates another server that would be running in the nearby environment of the production, which could be used as my staging slot. Now, why the term staging I specified? This is because my developer, when he or she is going to develop the code, they'll not release the code anywhere directly to the production. Rather, I'll ask my developer team to write the code to, let's say, one of the version control option of source control like GitHub. So what is this? GitHub is one of the source control options where you can see in GitHub, for time being, I have just a repo called AZ303 dev repo. Imagine this one. Now imagine a consideration like this, where your developer teams, they write the code and they commit their source code into a repo like a GitHub, Git, or DevOps repo. And imagine this index.html is the file which you're trying to commit there. Now this is a file named index.html where it says this is the staging site committed in Git. I have modified it as some content which we have in it. And my target is, whenever my developer updates any source code in here, that should not come to the production, but it should be applicable to the staging slot which we created in here. So let me close it, and you can see this is my staging. I'll click this, and staging exactly looks same way like your production. Just in case, if I click browse, you can see This is going to be my staging, which is having the production URL followed by that -staging, which indicates that this could be a staging environment for data deployment, which means my developer, he want to get a continuous feedback on the releases he make, so he will release the code into this space. Now, how do you do it? Should I have to go to that SCM and again publish, or how is it? That's where your DevOps practice come to the line, where we connect the staging slot, which we have in here, with the following GitHub repository, which is 303 dev repo. For example, in the staging slot, in the left side, you can see you have Deployment Center Classic. So web apps, they have inbuilt methodology, which is integrated with Azure DevOps or third-party DevOps. So I'll use this one where you can see the continuous integration and deployment I'm going to do, where my source code is available in GitHub in the following repo. So I'll pick the source as GitHub. Since I logged into the GitHub in the same browser, it is letting me to log in directly. So I'll just click continue, where I'm using the build engine. So build engine is typically the environment where every time when the code is written, it should be compiled. So that compilation can be done by using Azure DevOps pipelines, GitHub Actions, or the built-in feature of Azure Web Apps, which is called Kudu Console. This is the one we are using at this point. So this will build my code on demand. Let's continue. Now we need to pick the code. So this is the organization. Followed by that, your repository. So in the drop down, AZ, there is 303 dev repo, which is this one, where my index.html file is. I picked it, and now the branch is main branch, and I'll click continue, and finally I'll click finish, which will finish my setup of the entire environment. Now what's happening in here? Your staging slot, which showed the following thing as an output for you, is now getting connected with this GitHub. So the moment this connection is successfully done, where it will show the latest commit message in here, which is called updated index.html. It took that. So if I now refresh my staging slot, this is the staging site committed in Git. I have modified it, which means this is the one. Now imagine this, if your developer commits the code again, let's say I'll edit this. I'll write something. Let's say I'll say, I am making another change. So I wrote something in here, just some change. And again, I scroll down and I click on commit changes, which means I change the source code where it will initiate a continuous integration and delivery for me. So a pull will take place in here for the change I made in a moment. And now that here it is. And that change automatically appears in the staging. So when I refresh my staging, it comes with the latest content. Now, what's your benefit here? The benefit is you are updating your development staging or anywhere in a continuous way. Now, once you feel, yes, this is my production site, which is perfect, that's where you can swap this website from here to production. Now, there could be a question. Why can't I directly connect my development thing, which I connected here into staging? Why can't I connect to this one? Which means, why can't I connect the production website with the GitHub to get the code directly? That's where the point comes. When you write huge bunch of code, there is a build operation that will go, which can happen for 1 minute or 1 second or 10 minutes, depending on the code base, which will cause a downtime. So to avoid the downtime is where we bring the code to staging, so that when things are ready, we make a swap operation where source code will be swapped from here to here with less, or let's say, zero downtime. How do you swap it? Let me show you next. In the same web app, if you go to overview, you see there is a button called swap in here. Let's say I'll click the swap button. What does mean by swap? It's nothing but swapping the source code which is in production to dev and dev to production or anything you want. Let's say my target is the code in the staging slot must be swapped to production, and the code in the production must be taken to staging slot. That's my major objective. Now, the source chains and target chain speaks about any configuration settings. If there is any mismatches between them, it will show you. For now, there is no mismatch. So just click the swap button. Now, the moment you do it, depending on the code base size you have, it will happen quickly or it might take some time. But during this process, your production it can be, or your staging it can be, they will not have any downtime. They will function properly without downtime. So my end customer, he will be working properly. Now during this process, once the swapping is completely carried forward, I will get my source code available, which means here you can see in a moment things will be. Now, why this term called blue-green deployment now? Now, that's where the point comes. Your blue environment is maintaining the older production thing, and a green site you deployed, which is newer production content. Now, you're bringing this new production to the latest environment, which could act as my production. without downtime. So that's why in DevOps, this term is called as blue-green deployment. Now see this? This is my production website, which is having the staging source code in it, whereas my staging website is having the content from production. Just in case if something goes wrong, like after the swapping is done, your production is crashed or something is not working, anytime you can reinitiate the swap process by clicking the swap button again, roll back the things, which means now you're in a safer zone of rolling back the situation. Until and unless your staging slot is not updated, which means when it gets updated, either some developer commits some code in the repository, or in the staging slot, you go to this deployment center and you initiate a synchronization manually by clicking the sync button, this one. Just in case I click the sync now, my staging slot, this one will now get the updated latest content in the development, which is considered the staging one. So my developer team can continue to work the same way they work. And this is the benefit of the staging environment. Now, any questions on these from anyone?
Brilliant. I must say, first of all, this is I've done like I think this is the one of the good ones demos. So very good. I've already got a lot of feedback onto this. Som will answer all your questions. Som has some questions. We'll answer that. But I think I've got. So guys, if you have to first of all, brilliant. Now, if you're working with, if you already have the basic concepts, it becomes very, very clear, like me or anyone who's working. If not, don't worry, because you may not have those basic concepts, and this is what you will be learning and understanding it. But if you have to rate it to 1 to 5, if you can rate it, that will be wonderful. And 5 for good, Kamal, let me know and tell me, give a rating, and let us know what we could do to make it a brilliant. 5, brilliant, Shraddha, 5, 5, 5, Ramesh, 5. Thank you very much. 5, 5, lot of 5s. Wow, Bharat is saying excellent. This is what Azure DevOps or CI/CD can do. Excellent. Swapping is cool. Hey Atul, can we have some Springboard microservices application deployed in web apps with Azure? Okay, I don't know. I'm not a .NET or Java person, but I'll ask. Maybe I'll ask Nishan to answer this question. All the technical questions behind the scene. Okay, so except one feedback is 4. Sumit is saying 4. Maybe I would love to hear why, but otherwise all 5 brilliant. Pramila is saying how many hours a week this course is about. Would this be a weekend course? I'm going to cover that. 5-star for the demo. 5, 5. Bharat, can you do me a 5 for me as well, please? Ravi saying yes, brilliant. Thank you. And brilliant. So well done job. I must say that Nishant, we do a lot of demos in other classes as well. For solution architect, but this is the way you've explained it. Superb. I'm impressed. Well done. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to pick it from here. There are a lot of questions are coming. Please. Okay. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to cover that. All the questions I will be covering that as well. Can you see someone confirm my team? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, your screen.
And you see the exam basics. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Those who have not rated, make sure you go and rate us, guys. We spend a lot of time into that, and please, big credit to Nishant for this demo. Thank you very much. And again, as I said, we want to do a lot more, but I also have a lot of guys talking about Kubernetes, which I'm going to do towards end. A lot of guys are talking about program. I'll talk about a program very quickly, but we'll take very quickly. Let's see exam basics, and after the program, which I'll explain you, there are some very interesting bonuses coming, but only for limited time. And then once I've explained all this, then we're going to talk about Docker and Kubernetes as well. And we'll be taking up as many questions as we can. So if behind the scene, you take, if you can take questions, Nishant, that will be wonderful. But let's look at exam basics. There are 40 to 60 questions. There are multiple choice questions, fill in the blank. There's no negative marking. It's you get 150 minutes and to answer all the questions. There'll be multiple choice questions, as I said, drag and drop. And then performance-based questions were planned. Because of COVID, we have not seen, but that might come. We prepare you for these, for those as well. So, and there will be case studies. We're going to talk about the case studies as well. The registration exam fee is $165. We get as a Microsoft partner, we get some discounts. We'll pass on those discounts to you. And then you passing score is 700. You can retake for some reason if you fail, which should not happen if you follow the path we are teaching. If you look at all our sample questions, if you do all the labs and you understand, if you go through our program, you will, I've not seen any case which someone have failed in AZ 400, and I'll be really, really disappointed if that happens. But in worst case, you can retake after 24 hours. And then recently, or Microsoft announced that they are valid for 1 year. And after 1 year, you need to review. You can review them, renew them online, but we help you with any update as well. So you get updates as well. You can take this exam either from home or from a center. We'll talk about that as well if someone needs. As I said, performance-based labs are coming or possibly come. They used to happen earlier, they stopped, but they might come again anytime. We'll be covering about that as well. Now, these are some of the sample questions which are inside the program in each module, and we have around 100 plus. We constantly evaluate these questions. So we teach you a particular module, and after that we see whether you have successfully been able to complete these questions or not. And these questions will also help you going back to the basics and understand those topics as well. I like that, as I said, 100 plus, we constantly evolve and improve on these. So just to do a quick recap on a learning path, I said it's a comprehensive 12-week module, and theory part we cover, and then followed by a lot of practical labs. And then the most important part is the project work. And this week 11th and 12th is very important, where we do a lot of tips, CV preparation, exam preparation. Now, you don't need to wait for that long. And if you don't have that much time, everything is available in the portal for you to start immediately. But depending on the time or depending on where you are, you might take anything ranging from, probably I would say, give yourself 4 weeks to 12 weeks. We leave it on YouTube, but we teach you, or we give you that much time for you. As I said, comprehensive hands-on lab. I'm not going to go on hands-on lab detail right now here, but everything that you need to do. So today we saw was all about build and deployment, but there's also not only that, but from an infrastructure point of view, there'll be infrastructure build. You'll be building some servers, as we saw, but you'll be also doing some other things like ASP.NET, Chef, Puppet, Terraform. And then if you're from security, there'll be a couple of things from a security point of view, like implementing security and compliance, or managing the technical debt, or SonarQube if you're coming from, again, testing point of view or security point of view as well. So there'll be comprehensive hands-on lab. We don't learn without doing. So theory, but cover it by the practical. And as I said, sample exam questions. And this is where followed by the interview questions. And sorry, this is with sample CV. So CV is very, very important. A lot of guys say that we have learned, I've done the certification, but I'm not getting the calls. And this is where they've not written the CV the way as someone will make it click and say, hey, I want to interview this guy. And this is where we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that a little bit later, about how to put and what to put in your CV. But if you do decide to join the program, we have this bonus, but it's only for limited time, which is worth $199, which you'll get for CV review and interview questions. Now, as I said in the earlier, there are a lot of job opportunities available on cloud or DevOps alone, but then a lot more in Azure DevOps as well. So you prepare the CV based on what we suggest you. We also give you interview questions. You prepare for those interview questions. You apply for these jobs, and this is where the mantra of your success. This is where you get result. This is where you get the higher paid job that you deserve. And we always recommend everyone to focus on CV once they have learned, if they really want to get higher paid job. And I'll talk about that, as I said, a little bit later. Now, the question is, as all of you guys are asking, how do I learn all this quickly and effectively? And this is where I said the program, it's a comprehensive step-by-step program, which goes complete from beginners, keeping beginners in mind, with 26 modules, 100 plus lessons, 25 plus hands-on lab, exam preparation. And then the most important is, once you do the training on job support, and we give you 1 year, and that's the one which is unique and different. A lot of companies where you go for, and there are other training providers as well, no doubt about it, but what they do is they give you training, and after that they don't know you and you don't know them. But we don't take that approach. Our approach is that your real journey begins once you have completed the training, and for that reason we support you for entire 1 year. So you get 1 year on job support. You will of course get sample questions to prepare. You will get extensive hands-on lab, and we are constantly improving and evolving. Someone was asking about something, someone was asking, can we add Ansible? I've already done that. So anything which we think that are going to help you in the program, we will definitely do it. As long as it's related to DevOps, we'll definitely do it. So we'll cover everything, all the 7 topics that we mentioned for the exam. Now, why we are different, as I said, and what makes us different, our unique training methodology, why we are so famous, why we have suddenly grown so quickly. We have 5,700 plus paid members inside the program. So why we are so is because of some of the unique features which we've implemented, which will help you not only clearing the certification, but getting a job and learning it so that you can do a good job. So you get 1 year on-job support. There'll be weekly live interactive sessions. So today what you see here, you can't see each other's question because it's a big group. And in our training program, which will be a much smaller group, we only take 50 new members, but we invite all the previous batch students as well if they want to come back again to help or to have any questions as well. So, but there'll be a week in that you'll be able to see each other. You'll be able to see, ask questions by unmuting. Today you are unable to unmute, but in the live interactive session, which will be happening every week, you will get to ask questions on that live interactive. The recording of those will be available for lifelong. The post-session recording will be available, and anything that happened in the past will be available for you as well. Now there is a free unlimited retake of the program, which means you can come back again and again over the next 1 year. Now there's also already a videos, well-done videos, which will tell you the basic concepts and all the videos which are available. And these are well-done videos done to explain these concepts. We also have the activity guides so that you can learn at your own pace. You don't need to wait for the session to start. So the session will be happening every Saturday, Sunday, but you don't need to wait for that long. You can start doing immediately, and team will be there to help and support. Now, this is very, very important. This is what makes us unique. Another one, which is WhatsApp support. So you will be there on the WhatsApp group. We'll be helping you over the next 1 year. And what happens is as a human being, I've noticed we tend to learn better in a group. And when sometime I'm not feeling motivated, I see suddenly someone else have completed a lab. It will inspire me to do the lab as well. Or if I need some help, I can quickly ask in WhatsApp group and say, hey, I'm stuck here. Can someone help me? And my team will be there. Nishant will be there. Other experts will be there. Other members will be there who have completed this training before you. So we help each other. Suddenly someone says, hey, I've completed certification. That will inspire others to complete the certification as well. Or they get a job. All these success wins we share in the group. So WhatsApp. And apart from that, we also have a ticketing system. I'll explain you that as well. So if something takes longer, we can track progress and we can do the ticketing system. There'll be step-by-step hands-on live we have already mentioned. Now, training is focused on two things, job and certification. And you won't get job unless you learn it thoroughly and you understand these things well. And that is our objective for you, to make sure you'll understand and learn these concepts. And that is what makes us unique. So we don't do just one part, we do all three parts, which is theory, practical, and exam questions. And you will need all of that to be successful. Now, this is how portal look like inside. So on the portal of this, and I'll explain you here, this is where you see all the course content as well inside the portal. So these are all the modules, 7 things which is said, 7 modules are or 7 high-level topics, and within that there'll be lessons in each of that. So we go from beginner, keeping beginners, and then all the way to all these 7 modules. There'll be videos of short video, anything ranging from 8 minutes to 15, 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Some are slightly longer, where let's suppose some guys later asked us, can you give us an administrator overview? So we added a lab for them on how to do those. There'll be step-by-step activity PDFs, there'll be videos, there'll be lab videos, as well as the theory part as well. And someone asked about Jenkins. We are going to give you Jenkins as well. We already integrated Jenkins on Azure pipeline. How do you deploy code? So this is how portal look like for you. So there'll be videos, modules, lessons, and there'll be quiz on end of each module. So you'll see quizzes as well. And apart from that, it's a weekly live interactive session will be happening. So this is all the portal look like for you. And these, as I said, is sample questions like that. You can click on these sample questions and then see. There'll be also, once you have done module wise, you can download these PDFs and get these PDFs as well. You can want to learn at your or test it at your own pace as well here. And there'll be different quizzes, and then we are constantly evaluating and adding and updating as new exam questions come for the portal. So schedule, it's going to happen every Saturday and Sunday. Timing will be in the morning hours for US, In a winter time, it's 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. PST, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. CST, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. EST, and then GMT it's 2 to 6 and 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. IST. That's winter. And then daylight saving 7 to 11, 9 to 1, 10 to 2, or 2 to 6. These are every Saturday and Sunday. We are going to happen. So when we said 12 weeks, that is 1 per week, and here it will be probably 6 to 8 weeks you should be able to complete, and then we'll give you a lot of time to prepare for exam, to do some project work which will help you in job. We help you with your CV preparation, and then till that for 1 year. So you have 1 year free on-job support, and trust me, this was very important for us. Initially it took a lot of effort, and that's why my team have grown from what used to be 20 guys team to now 70 plus members. We help you, support you. But the benefit is that there are a lot of questions come on from on job, which we feed it back onto the training. So guys were saying, hey, I'm doing this in project work. How do I do this? So we take that work and then put it into the program. And that's why we are constantly evolving. And that's why you see every time you come back again and again over the next 1 year, you'll be seeing new content as more project work, more real industry based. You can come back to the program again and again. So we only encourage 50 new seats, and then but allow all the previous batch students, if they want to come back again, to grasp or recap some things. And that's the reason we also limit for 50 seats only. There'll be weekly live interactive sessions. As I said, there is lifetime access to all the videos and portal that you get. Now this is how the WhatsApp group will look like. I'll talk about as well. Someone was saying was able to do all the 3 CI/CD with Jenkins, CI/CD with Azure DevOps, and CI/CD with Jenkins CD with Azure DevOps. Like that, these are the labs someone was asking or telling. And when someone sees, hey, so-and-so person have done it, let me do it as well. Now, this is again WhatsApp group support. This is how WhatsApp will look like, or probably you might already be using WhatsApp. So here, thanks for help. Oh no, sorry. So this is someone was asking and say got some help. Someone is saying I have done creating a VM. We're also creating some virtual machines for infrastructure build. Another one is saying someone was saying or hitting a problem, and they're saying we're just checking with the folks to the group if we can solve it ourselves. So this is a group who's part of the program training, and they're trying to solve their problem themselves, and they say, well, let's just see if we can solve, others will check here. Or someone else again, folks, thanks to Atul, this is again big kudos for him, since it was permission issue, and on admin conf, some file permission issue being sorted on that. On top of that, for some reason, if we can't fix your problem immediately, we also have a ticketing system so that we are accountable, and we use Zendesk, and every time you raise a ticket or you send something, those who join the program will talk about the process, and it will create a ticket so we can track the progress. And every time we check the rating as well, and we make sure that end of the day, you should be happy with these tickets as well. It's not just creating, we also work towards making sure your issues are resolved. So if you don't want to use WhatsApp, you can use ticketing system, or you can use both, whatever you prefer. Now, we have 130,000 free members who are learning like you. But we also have 5,700 plus paid members, and this I checked recently, but earlier we have 5,700 plus 76 or something. So we have 5,700 members who are paid members. So you won't be the first one to come here, definitely, and you won't be the last one to here. So you will have 5,700 plus members, and this is what our students have to say. This is Victor. The training was great, 5 by 5. Our team. This is exceptional, and they know what they are doing. Even if we don't get these things in live session, there is a possible way to go through the recorded videos. I'm happy to be here. You're doing well. Varaprasad, 5 for this, far better and excellent than previous batches. As I said, we constantly improve, and this is I think in September 20, constantly improve, and that excellent improvement on content and delivery of knowledge. K21, you're best in continuous improvement. 5-star rating. The way I've asked here, we also ask inside the group, because for us quality is very important. Because if you get a quality training at a competitive price, you'll come back again. So that's why we constantly check here. Thanks, the module have been very good. The right combination of practical and theoretical knowledge. Again, now this is what some of what our students have achieved. And now he's Yunus. I've attended the interview for 3 different companies. The first interview was flop, but the second and third company interviews went very well. I'm expecting some offer letter from both the companies. And that is kind of a result why people come back again and again. Another one, nobody can fault the material facilities provided by the team. Keep it up. I'm absolutely sure no other academy provide such a good package, which is totally worth it. So this is the guys we are saying. Again, I can go on and on. This is, as I said, Harsh the clear the certification. Certification, no doubt you'll be clearing, but we go much beyond the certification. Certification is easy peasy if you follow the what we are telling you. But then you also need practical knowledge. Here I've cleared Rajesh. I've cleared my AZ 400 examination yesterday. Vara, I've not just AZ 400 but 900, 104, 400. Another one successfully completed. Dish. So I can go on and on, and I don't want to bore you with. These are all available on our website with their LinkedIn profile. You can check it out as well. Now the important question comes is, hey, what is the value of the course? And that is where I struggle a lot to find out what should be the value of the course. So I went into the internet and searched for what is the prices in the market, and that is what I found, close to $3,000, $2,995, and just for 5 days. And after that, they don't know you, you don't know them after the training. And I don't know how much is the practicals, but this is 2,995. So I personally felt it a bit expensive. Then I went into UK and see, oh, let me try out on UK. So this is again 2,495, and including VAT, if you put 20% VAT, if you convert into dollars, again close to $3,000. Pretty expensive in my view. So then I looked at it and people said, oh, India is cheaper. So we looked into India and said, oh, what might be the price on India? It's 97,000 plus GST separate, which is I think again 20% or sorry 8% or 10%. So that comes somewhere around $1,500. Again, the same problem. After 5 days, no one. I'm not there. They don't help you with CV preparation, or after 5 days, you don't know them. They don't know you have done the complete training all to you. So again, still $1,500. So what we thought is how we can make it quality training, which is a without compromising the quality, best in quality, but also the competitive prices. And that's why we said $997. And that's the prices we estimated and we planned, and we did it in 2019. And we did that, and suddenly COVID stuck. And people were coming back and say, hey, it's a little bit expensive because of COVID. I'm struggling to find or how we can make it more interesting. So we said probably to make it more interesting, we said, because of COVID, we are going to do it. And I don't know how long it's going to stay, but it's for first come, first serve. How many seats? It's 50 seats only. If you register now, it will be close to 50%. It's like around 40% off. So you just pay $597 and you get Azure DevOps, complete training, which I've mentioned with all the labs, activity guide, live interactive session, 1 year on-job support, you will get all. So if you're interested, go to URL k21academy.com/AZ40003. So there are 3 zeros. AZ400 is the exam code number, and then 03 is the number. So if you're interested, go to k21academy.com/AZ40003, and there are 50 seats on first come, first serve basis. So you will have 2 payment plans for there. So if you go to AZ40003, scroll down somewhere in the middle. Don't stay on top, scroll down somewhere in the middle. This is the page you're going to look like. So on right hand side, you see one single payment of $597. The actual price is $997. Your limited time, you're getting $400 off, $597, and you click on enroll now. Now, if for some reason, if you can't afford one single payment of $597, then you can also go for monthly installment, which means you pay $147 now, and then 4 remaining payments after every 30 days. So automatically you'll be deducted 30 days later, 147, another for 147, like that. Otherwise, you'll be paying 197 later. So if you can afford, my suggestion to you would be go for single payment. Both are exactly same in terms of content and the value and the quality. The only difference is because you're paying one single payment, it's slightly better price. You're here because you're paying monthly, you pay slightly more here. So as I said, repeat one more time. If you can afford, go for single payment. If you can't, go for 147, and then automatically 30 days later, you will be deducted 147 like that. So when you go to this page, k21academy.com/AZ40003, click on one of the enroll now buttons. And when you go to the next page, you will come and you will see the coupon code already applied to you. You'll be entering first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And if for some reason, if a coupon code is not applied, I think the coupon code will be my team will help you then. Oh yeah, coupon code is AZ400. You can use that coupon code AZ400. So you enter your first name, last name, email address, and phone number, and then you go. If you've selected single payment, you will be seeing 400 already discounted. You see the price is 597. You can either pay via the debit or credit card or Visa or MasterCard, or you can use PayPal. You enter your card details, and then come here at the bottom here, you see I agree to terms and conditions, and then click on register now. You can go for one single payment, or you can go for like 5 payments of $147 each. You click on I agree to terms and conditions, and then enter your Visa or MasterCard and PayPal, and then you click on agree on this, enter details. And so one payment you'll be paying now $147, and then 30 days later another 147, another 147, like that, 4 more payments you'll be doing. And then now one more thing I wanted to say, and a lot of guys were asking about admin and other things. So when you write an exam, you get this badge which is saying that once you clear this exam, you get AZ400, and you get this badge, one badge which is saying you've cleared AZ400 certification. Now, in order for you to get a Azure DevOps engineer, which is a third 3-star rating, you have to be either Microsoft Azure administrator or developer, any one of them. So I repeat one more time, and that is because people have a lot of questions. So if you clear this, you'll get one badge saying that you are AZ400 certified, and then you can go for AZ developer. And then in order to get your badge, which is Azure developer, you need to be either admin certified or developer certified. You can pick any of these, one of these. Now you can do in any order. You can do first DevOps and then admin, but you first admin and then do this. But you're going to get this DevOps engineer once you clear both of that. Otherwise, you'll get only one badge. So for that reason, when you go to the next page, so if you go to the next page, once you click on register now, you're in, and then you will have an option whether you want to go for AZ 104 as well or not. So we have a separate program which is Azure Administration. We do it in $599, and again we are planning to change the price as well, because that was the old price. We are going to increase the price as well. Since then we have added a lot of content. So if you register now with this, you're going to get it in $299 only, the entire AZ 104 program with this. So if you want it, you click on button and then say yes, I want AZ 104 as well. Or if you don't want AZ 104, which is Azure Administration, you just want AZ, you already Azure Admin AZ 104 certified, or you wanted to pick AZ 104 later, you can do that, but later you pay $599. So decide what you want to pick, and you click this button top, or you click on bottom button. This is for one single payment. Or if you picked up installment options, so you'll be doing 2 additional payments. You already paid 5, and then after 5, you will be adding 2 more payments of $147 each. Otherwise, you pay $599, as I said. Or if you going for monthly, it's slightly longer, higher on if you buy separately. So again, same thing on installment. You say I want AZ 104 too, or you say that no, I'm already AZ 104 certified. Or if you're already AZ 204 certified, you can skip this part. So you'll be paying, in total, you will be paying 4 plus 2 more here. 2 more payments, additional payments after this. So this is about, or otherwise you can say I don't want, and you can skip that. Now, as soon as you register and pay, you will get an email with a link of your confirmation saying that you're paid, and then you will get a WhatsApp link. This is my WhatsApp link for the group which I was talking earlier, so you can join immediately. You will also get your login detail, and then you will be going to the K2N Academy portal. There'll be a login page link on top right. You click on that, you enter your email, user ID and password, and you will be straight in. And this is how you'll be seeing the Pro portal. So right hand side, as I said earlier, is a well done videos. All these well done videos, which we say 100+ videos, 25 hands-on labs, and exam preparation and on-job. Like this is what you'll be seeing, all the presentations, labs, and videos, and all the live session recording of the previous batches, or any future batches you will see under here. So every batches year by year, and we do probably around we repeat these batches, so you will see these batches live recording here as on this one. So if you need any help, let my team know. They'll be handy to help you on this. Let me take a sip of water. I've covered a lot, and a lot of you guys are here asking questions. I will be covering that as well. So paid, Parimala is saying paid. Thank you very much. And Parimala, brilliant. You're going to win some bonus prizes, which I'm going to talk you in a minute. So you are in for a treat, because I'm going to give you some bonuses as well for those who already paid, or yeah, 1 second. So now all this is covered by the 100% money back guarantee. No, there is someone was asking about, Rahul is asking, will you do the Azure subscription as well? Also, how you're going to practice is we are going to give you step-by-step instructions through which you are going to create the Azure account, and that will give you $100 credit. And we'll also give you step-by-step instructions on how to create Azure developer portal. And that is valid for 30 days. And then you can either create another trial account after 30 days. We'll share the steps again, or you can upgrade to pay-as-you-go model. So that's how you're going to practice. We'll cover that as well. Okay, good. So the guarantee, as I said, look, so whatever you're going to learn today here is all covered by the 100% step-by-step, 100% money back guarantee. So you have, just I wanted to highlight it to you that we stand behind the product. We know that this program is going to work, but this program is going to work if you take action or if you do the lab. If you are not ready to do the lab, if you think that you will get away by just reading or like just going through the questions, you can clear the certification, no doubt about it. But if you really want that high paid job, I will highly recommend you to do the lab. And if you do the lab, we are so confident you will 100% get the result. That result could be getting certification, getting a job, or both of them, or maybe much higher paid job. Now, for some reason, we are so confident about the quality, and I know people are nervous whether how will that be. We have already seen the quality, but on top of that, we are adding a 100% money back guarantee. If for some reason, if you think you're not happy, or if you think that it was not good, or if you think that it was not valuable, all you need to do is send us a screenshot of all the labs. As you perform the labs, you take the screenshots, and then within 60 days, you send us all the screenshots and we'll refund you. Forget about attending the session as well. We know that if you do the labs, that should be more than enough for you to get the value. So just send us a screenshot. We'll give you 100% money back on you have 60 days. Now, also mentioned about the free gift. Those who already paid, big congratulations for you guys. My team will be sharing it on the WhatsApp message, so I'll be naming them as well. So big congratulations for those who have paid, but those know you will automatically get all these things which I've said. So stay tuned. Now, one thing was people was, as I said to you earlier as well, that hey, I mentioned that DevOps are jobs in Kubernetes in Azure DevOps. There are plenty of jobs, but then if you really want to go on a higher paid job, industry is moving towards containers, microservices, and Kubernetes. And you can implement that Kubernetes on Azure. That's called as Azure Kubernetes Service. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but there are a lot of higher paid jobs about these Kubernetes on Azure, and it's going to grow only here. So in Kubernetes, what happens is you have your master node that you see on left-hand side, and you have these worker nodes. And worker nodes are nothing but this is where your applications run. So I have one worker node, second worker node, and third worker node. And on these worker node, I have my containers are running. And on those containers, I'm running my applications. So user will be coming from here, and they're accessing these applications running on top of containers. And this entire cluster is managed by the master node. And there is some cloud controller which will be managing cloud-based applications or cloud, like my cloud storage, cloud networking, cloud load balancers, cloud firewall. And then there's something called as API server, which is managing all these or dictating or commanding this. So this is my Kubernetes architecture. And something similar happens in Azure, where you have the master node, which will manage your cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and there's a worker node, and that is where you run your containers, your app container runtime. Your applications are deployed on top of this container. And then to store the data persistently, you pick the disk or files from Azure, which is from Azure Cloud, Azure Disk, Azure Files. This cluster will need networking, and that is networking you get from Azure Virtual Network. Now, all this is managed through a cluster Kubernetes. Now, in terms of you will be managing this, Azure will be managing this master node, and you will be managing this worker node. How do you do the manage? You can use command line interface, CLI, or you can use the console. And we're going to do some labs around that. So as so there are labs, and as a part of this program, you're going to get this Azure Kubernetes service worth 497 absolutely free. In that program, what we do is we give you some hands-on lab as well to create Kubernetes on cloud. So where you'll be deploying Kubernetes cluster on AKS. There's something called as ACR, which is images. So images will build the containers. What you see here, these containers, these containers are built from images. And then these images are stored in something called as Azure Container Registry, ACR, and you deploy your application. So how do you create this registry? How do you create or publish images inside that? How do you deploy applications on Kubernetes cluster? How do you deploy your microservices on Azure container instances? You can do all this on, you'll be doing that. So there's a separate program we do, which is Azure Kubernetes service. We have labs, videos, lessons like we always do, and there'll be activity guide on the portal for you, where you'll be deploying the Kubernetes cluster through command line CLI as well as from the portal. So that bonus is worth 497. Those who already registered will get it. Those who've registered or registering now, that will be only available while we are inside the program. So you'll be getting this while we are in the program. And a lot of you guys have already paid. So big congratulations for Samir, Prashant, Samuel, Pranita, a couple of other guys. I'll take that as well. My team is sending me the messages. So big congratulations, you're going to get this bonus, but it's while we are in session, or 50 seats, whatever comes first will be available for that. Now, as I said, you have two payment options. You can either go for one single payment of 597, or you can go for 5 monthly payment of 147. You can go and check it out by going to ketonacademy.com/AZ40003, AZ40003. Now, second is, a lot of guys say Jenkins, and Jenkins is widely used tool as well. So like you have Azure pipeline, Azure code pipeline, like that you have Jenkins tool, which is a CI/CD again. You can use it for a lot of things. We are going to give you a bonus on what is Jenkins and how to deploy that Jenkins on CI/CD on Kubernetes. So there within DevOps, you might see some products, some companies using Jenkins. So there are jobs around Jenkins with DevOps or Kubernetes. So whatever Kubernetes we saw earlier, we are deployed on Azure Kubernetes service here. Container registry is where you pick up the images and deploy on Kubernetes service. So that deployment can be manual, or that deployment can be done through Azure pipeline, through Git. So your developers will develop as usual in Visual Studio. They will develop and put the source code into the repository. My Jenkins is going to pick up the code and convert that into image and put it into my image registry. And then same Jenkins or my Azure pipeline can put it into Azure Kubernetes, or Jenkins can do it as well. So if I'm doing a manual deployment, this is how the manual deployment on Kubernetes happens. Kubernetes, this is how it happens. Let me explain you. So developers will build the code, whether it's a .NET, Java, PHP, Python, Ruby, whatever they are doing, they will put it to Git repository. And manually, you as an administrator, you as an infra guy, you as a DevOps engineer is going to create or build an image using something called as Docker file. And then that Docker file will be pushed into Docker repository like my Azure Container Registry or Docker Hub. And then we deploy this image using something called as pods or deployment in a YAML file, using a YAML file onto the Kubernetes clusters. This is a manual method of doing that. Now, what I can do that same thing using CI/CD tool like Jenkins. So what I'm going to do, my developers will push the code into Git. I'm write a Jenkins job. And as soon as developers say commit, Jenkins will go and push it and create an image and push it into the repository. And then Jenkins will then again pick up this image and then deploy that image into the Kubernetes cluster. So that is the beauty of Jenkins. That is what we are going to cover. So we have a bonus worth 397. We do separately CI/CD on deploying Git and Jenkins. So using Git, which is code repository, and Jenkins, we're going to deploy on Kubernetes, which is Azure Kubernetes cluster. You'll be getting that as a bonus. So this is again, we have a bonus, which is like modules written here, like what is, we'll talk about CI/CD Jenkins tool. And first in this lab or in this lesson, we're going to do it a manual deployment. So before you can automate something, you need to know how to build it manually. So we're covering manual deployment. And then once the manual deployment is done in these 2 lessons, we are then going to deploy it in automation. And you are going to do that. You can do all this. You will be doing in the program. And this is the guide, looks like step-by-step hands-on guide. So there'll be videos and there'll be guide. So we have covered everything for you. You don't need to worry about. So that's a bonus 2. But as I said, it's on first come, first service, first come, serve basis, first 50 guys. So the URL is k2nacademy.com/AZ40003 if you forgot. If you're hitting any problem, if you need any help, let my team know. Give them the country code and phone number if you want to speak to them, and they'll be happy to help you. So 597 single payment or 5 payment of 149. Let me see if there's only 1 or 2 questions, because I'll probably be okay. So what is the summary of items I'm getting free for signing on now? Ramesh, I'm going to share all this. Let me cover. You're getting a lot of treat, but that treat will be so Elgapan is saying, I've enrolled in this program. Brilliant. You're going to get all these bonuses. So those who already got registered, you're going to get it. No problem. Ramesh is saying, I'm in Vancouver. I've just signed up and paid in full. I'm going to go do it after Azure